Okay, hello everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to this another session of Indian Constitution. And in the last class, we had studied about the uh, various things like of the Union Executive. We have talked about a union executive, and at the same point of time, I would like to, as we are meeting after a long time, so I would just have it covered for you people, so that just we will be doing a quick recap. Okay, so I hope everybody has joined in, and there was a problem with the previous link, so I have shared a new link so that you can all join in over here. So we will start with this particular topic. I will be just doing a recapitulation of what we have done in our last class. So first we will talk about the union executive. Okay, let me take out the pen so that it becomes easy for you people. Okay, just a minute. Okay, so we talked about the union executive. Okay, so union executive has for certain wings, like we have got president, we have got vice president, and we have got the councils of ministers headed by the prime minister of our country. And yes, I have also talked about that there was a fourth part as well, which was known as the attorney general of India. So the fourth is the attorney general. Okay, so we will talk about the attorney general also in our later classes. So who is an attorney general, just to be in just to make you understand what who is an attorney general. Basically, he is the lawyer of the government. Okay, and as he is the lawyer of the government, so that is the reason why he is also a very important part of the union executive. Okay, so we have talked about the union executive, we talked about various things about president. We talked about president being the head of the Indian state. That means he is the head, but he is the nominal head. Just like the Britain has a king or a queen, he is just like a king, or he is an equivalent to the king or the queen of Britain. Okay, as king and the queen of Britain do not have any sort of major political powers, so the president also does not have major of the political powers, which we have learned in our last classes. So yes, he is the first citizen of India, and he is and there we have also talked about how he is being elected. So we talked about electoral college, we talked about who are the members of the electoral colleges, that is the houses of the parliament, legislative assemblies of the state, and also the elected members in the legislative assemblies of union territories of Delhi and Puducherry. Soon Jammu and Kashmir will also join in this particular slot of having electoral college from the legislative assemblies of union territories. Okay, but the nominated members, we have also talked about the nominated members. They cannot participate in the election of the president. So we talked about what are the terms and the conditions of being the president, which are the articles which are associated with being the president. Okay, how the nomination of the presidents can be done. We talked about having a security deposit. Those who want to be the president, or those who want to run for the election of the candidate for being the president, he or she has to deposit a 15,000 rupees of security deposit. Well, once of the students asked me that why we have to make this security deposit. Well, it is actually written in our constitution, and as you are going to be a serious candidate, so it is actually for that purpose. It serves that that those who wants to be the candidate, they have to give a security deposit of rupees 15,000. Okay, so what's the salary? We talked about salary being rupees 5 lakh per month. And what are the qualifications to be the president? We have also talked. Okay, so yes, he has to be a citizen of India. He has to be above 35 years of age, and he should not hold any office of profit under union government. Well, that means he cannot hold any office, or he cannot do any job under the union government or the state government. Okay, so that is things. Okay, so we talked about the electors as the proposers and seconders. Okay, so these have been done. So the oath of the president has to be administered by the Chief Justice of India. Okay, and if Chief Justice is not available, the senior most judge of the Supreme Court oversees the election procedures. Okay, Well, I would just like to ask others that if they have not joined, so kindly join with this new link. I have already shared in your groups that how you have joined or not. So please kindly ask everyone to join in this link. Okay. So I have just okay, just a minute. I'm just checking whether the links have been posted in the groups or not. Well, the links have been posted in both Telegram as well as in the WhatsApp. So I hope so slowly the students will be joining in. Okay. So yes. So let's start again. So as we were talking about the qualifications, and there are certain conditions in which president's office has to be held. So we have already talked about all these things. So we are not going to discuss much about these parts. Okay. So the election, we have already talked that how the values of the vote of an MLA and MPs are being calculated. It's all basis on the basis of the total population of the state and the number of members in the legislative assemblies, as well as if we are talking about the MP, so we have to talk about the total number of MPs in the parliament and total number of MLAs from that particular state. So based on that, we actually do the valuation of the vote of an MP. Okay, so the terms and vacancies, we have already talked. So if we are talking about the vacancy, how the vacancy is being created, yes, the president holds his office for a tenure of 5 years. Okay, and he can be on expiration of his tenure, he can be removed. He's basically resigns from his office, and if he wants to run again for the presidential elections, he can definitely do it. Okay, so yes, by resignation also he can be done. The process of impeachment is also being done in order to remove the president from his office. Well, impeachment has never occurred in our country, but in recent past in USA, President Donald Trump had a impeachment procedure, but he somehow survived that impeachment procedure. Okay, so by death, yes, two of our former presidents have died in their office. So, and that also created a vacancy in the office. Okay, so yes. And so let's talk about the impeachment. We have already talked how the impeachment procedures can be done. So we have already talked about how Donald Trump was impeached, but he had the numbers, but he could not. So he could not be impeached further. Okay. So yes. So yes, for the impeachment procedures, one thing you need to know: while election, all the members of the legislative assemblies across the states, as well as from the parliament, participate. But for the impeachment procedure, we don't see the participation of the legislative members of legislative assemblies of union territories of Delhi and Puducherry, and as well as other states. So the state legislative assemblies do not participate in the impeachment procedure. Only the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha participates in the impeachment procedure. Okay, so we have already talked about the executive powers, legislative powers, financial powers, judicial powers, and all the powers we have already discussed in our last classes. Okay, so today we will be talking about the veto power of the president. So I don't remember whether I have completed it or not. So yes, veto power, if we are talking about, yes, a bill, if passed by the parliament, can become an act when it passes the assent of the president of our country, and it is being done. It is a procedure, but the president has the right to withhold the bill, and under Article 111 of our Indian Constitution, he can either give his assent to the bill, he may withhold the bill, or he may return the bill to the consideration of the parliament if it is not a money bill. So the money bill cannot, because money bill, if you're talking about, money bill basically means we are talking about the taxes, tax or anything related to revenue, tax and revenue. If you are talking about, all these things come under money bill. Okay, these are all coming under money bill. So money bill, if it is being introduced into the parliament, first of all, it has to get the assent of the president. So the prime minister first takes this bill to the, when after it is being passed in the after it is before a discussion can be done in the house. So the prime minister's duty is that to take this money bill to the president and if president says that okay, you may proceed with this money bill, then only it can be proceeded into the parliament. So other than money bill, these are the, if you're talking about other bills, well, if he may return the bill if it is for reconsideration of the parliament. Okay, so other than this, if a president is thinking of having it withholding the bill, so what happens is he can do it. And why he does it? Because it may be done hastily by the parliament, and the president may think that this is not the correct procedure, or this is not a place, or this is not the a bill which should be presented into the bill, because it takes care of a very minority part, and it is a kind of a selfish kind of a move by the members of the parliament. So that will be the time when the president uses his veto power. Yes, he uses his veto power and he withholds the bill to some extent. Okay, so what are the ways which we can have the veto power? So basically we have got 4 types of veto power: absolute, qualified, suspensive, and pocket veto. For India's perspective, we don't have this qualified veto. Okay, in USA it is being there, but for India's perspective it is not done over here. So as we are talking about this bill articles, so first of all, again I'm just repeating once again. So under article 111, he may sign the bill, he may refuse the bill, or he may send it back for recommendation. So let's talk about, if we are talking to refuse or send it back, so let's talk about the veto power. So first veto power is absolute veto. That means what is happening when an absolute veto is there? Absolute means complete rejection. So if you're talking about rejecting, right there and then and there, if he receives the bill, he is not going to entertain it. So if you're talking about complete rejection, so yes, it can be applied on money bill. And how I said about money bill, without being, if president does not allow at the first place itself, then the money bill cannot go to the Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. It's only for the Lok Sabha. So Lok Sabha, it cannot go to Lok Sabha. So now we are talking about ordinary bill. It may be some kind of any kind of bill which they are going to make an act or a law. So that will be, we are talking about ordinary bill. Means other than money bill, all the bills can be ordinary bill. Let's talk about the next part. So the private member bill. So what do you mean by a private member bill? First of all, let me explain who is a private member. So private member, if we are talking about those members of the parliament who are the members, the normal members of the parliament, and are not ministers, and from their side, if any sort of bill comes to the table of the speaker of the Lok Sabha, that bill can be termed as a private member bill. Okay, so private member bill, I am repeating once again, the member of the parliament who is not a minister, that person, if he takes up a bill in front of the speaker or in the front of the house, that bill is a private member bill. So private member bill can be, after discussion, can be sent to the president, and if president believes that this is not going to be a problem, this is going to create a problem, so he can use absolute veto. That means complete rejection. So if, for example, I'm just talking about this particular example, which has salary, allowance and pension of MP Bill 1991, and it was exercised by then President R. Venkataraman. So R. Venkataraman, why did he use absolute veto? Absolute veto, why did he use it? Because this bill was introduced on the last day of the working of that particular session, and it was a kind of a hasty decision, because it was actually believed that the government run by Chaudhary Charan Singh at that point of time is going to fall. So they were trying to create certain allowances and pension and salary revision. So that was the time it was done on haste, and R. Venkataraman withhold the bill, and it was absolutely rejected. Okay, so yes, you can see now. Let's talk about the suspensive veto. Suspensive veto, if we are talking about what is a suspensive veto, okay, so suspensive veto means to send back for reconsideration. Maybe there might be a certain part that president thinks that well, this is a okay sort of a bill, but we may think for reconsideration whether to implement it or not for this particular case. Next, if we talk about, he may give certain procedures, like he may actually say some certain guidelines to be followed, that you can introduce, you can reconsider this kind of a thing, you can use certain other provisions, or you can go without the provisions given into the particular bill, and it is done only for the ordinary bills, okay, only for the ordinary bills. So that normal bill which is there, that is there, okay. So now let's talk about the pocket veto. Well, pocket veto, there is a joke going around the Indian government as such, that the president of India has the biggest pocket in the world. And why it is so? Because president, if he thinks that he is not going to either reject it or send for reconsideration for certain bill, then what he does is he just put the bill aside. Basically what he does is, it's just like that he folds the bill and put it in his pocket for indefinite period of time, and it is not going to come out soon. It's like that, okay. So it was exercised by Gyani Zail Singh, the ex-president of our nation, and for Indian Post Office Amendment Bill of 1986, for that he did this particular he implemented pocket veto, okay. So he neither signs it, he neither rejects it, but he just keep it pending. That means he puts in pocket and forgets about it. So I'm not going to worry about this part. So that is the thing. It can be like this. So these are the veto powers which we have for the president of our country. Okay. So let's move on to the next slide, so that we go with the another important power, which is known as the pardoning power. So pardoning power, if we are talking about, you must have heard about recently that the execution of the Nirbhaya gang rape case. Okay, so there was a lot of sounds made in the medias and the nation when the lawyer who was defending those means rape active means those who were convicted of the rape. So they were first of all trying to get the presidential pardons, because they were thinking that okay, they have their families and also they can be granted pardons by the president. So how they can be granted power by the president? So if, and under the article number 72, it empowers the president to grant pardons. Okay, which kind of cases in which they can be he can be pardoned? Punishment or sentences for an offense against the union law, sentence by court martial, that is the military court, which is not the court of our own, it is actually military court, not the civil court, and sentence is a death sentence. So if a convict is on a death row, then that convict's last source of appeal is presidential pardon. So if president thinks that that person can be pardoned, he can be pardoned. If president thinks that okay, I'm not going to pardon him, so that person gets hanged. Okay, so this is actually what happens is, let's talk about the pardoning powers in other kind of things. So what kind of pardon he can do? So pardon means it removes both the sentence and conviction completely of all sentences, punishments and disqualification. That means that person is completely pardoned. So whatever mistake he has done or he has done, and for that he has been given certain sentences or punishment, that will be the time when all the conviction are just pardoned off, and that is the power of the president. Well, the second is the commutation. Commutation means substitution of one form of punishment with the other, and it is a lighter form. For example, maybe if a person is going for a death sentence, he can be commuted to a rigorous imprisonment. If a convict has been given a rigorous imprisonment, then he can be commuted into a simple imprisonment, or maybe there might be a kind of a remission, Okay, remission means reducing the period of the sentence without changing its character. Maybe rigorous imprisonment for, let us say, 7 years. It may be done to 1 year or 2 years. Okay, well, I have given 2 years and for 1 year. So it's just like that. Remission means just reducing the sentence period. Respite. That means sometimes the sentence is of it's a kind of a special thing that if this is a continuous 7 years of imprisonment, in between there might be a respite for a period of 6 months or one year. So these are the respite which can be given by the president due to some special cases arising, such as physical disability of the convict, or maybe the woman offender is pregnant, and for that respite can be given. So the last is a reprieve. That means execution of a sentence, especially that of a death, for a temporary period of time. That means, you see, sometimes maybe the president, maybe the person who is on a death row, maybe there are certain things suddenly found out that he may not have done it. Maybe there might be certain evidences which may prove that this person, for him the death sentence is a bit harsher, but we need more evidences. For that will be the time when a reprieve will be done. So let us say that today, if a person was to be hanged on today, so then it may be postponed to some other date. In the meanwhile, the convict has all the powers in the world, so that he can produce some witnesses, so that he can seek for pardon or a commutation from the President of India. Okay, so now with this we come to an end of the president part. Now let's talk about the Vice President of India. So, well, the president, everybody knows, our present president is Mr. Ramnath Kovind, and now our vice president is Mr. Venkaiah Naidu. Okay, so if we are talking about the vice president, he holds the second highest office in our country. Second highest office means after president, he is the second in command. Okay. And well, if we are talking about the office of the vice president, it is being modeled on the lines of the America's vice president's office. Okay, so just like our president, the vice president is not directly elected by the people, but again the method of indirect elections are being done. Same procedure, just how I said about the president's election, same procedures are being followed, only there is a difference in the electoral college. So what is the difference in the electoral college? The electoral college will be consisting of members of both the houses of the parliament, but not the, you see, this if you're talking about only the elected members, so it will not include the members of the legislative assemblies. Just in the case of the president, all the members of the state legislative assemblies are included, but for the vice president's election, they are not included. Only the elected and nominated members of the parliament are there. Yes, elected and nominated. For president, we did not have nominated members, but for vice president, we will be having a nominated membership as well. Okay, so for presidents, we had said about 50 electors as proposers and 50 electors as seconders, but for vice president, we have 20. Okay, the number is reduced to 20. And again, the same thing, every candidate has to deposit rupees 15,000 as a security deposit with the Reserve Bank of India. It is being mentioned in our Indian Constitution. Okay, so this is in brief about our vice president. So let's talk about who can be the vice president. So qualification, yes, same as prime ministers as well as president. He has to be a citizen of India. He should have completed 35 years of age and should be qualified for the election as a member of Rajya Sabha. Yes, members of Rajya Sabha is important over here. Okay, and he should not hold any office or profit under union or any state government, and also any local authority or public authority. So these are the terms and conditions by which has to be fulfilled for a vice presidential candidate, or who is going to be the vice president of India. And conditions, yes, he should not be either a member of Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha or any state legislature. And if any such kind of a person, just for example, we are talking about our Venkaiah Naidu. So Venkaiah Naidu, when he became the vice president, he was a member of the parliament. And once he got elected himself as the member of, as a vice president, so his seat in that particular house, from the day he got elected as the vice president, remained vacant, and that will be filled up by the procedure of that particular house, how to fill up that particular position. Okay, so this is something which it has to be done. So terms of the office, and it is being under the article number 67 of our Indian Constitution. He holds for 5 years. Well, yes, term is of 5 years upon which he enters his office. Well, he can resign anytime, and he can be removed from his office also. And how he can be removed? Well, there is no impeachment, but he can be removed by resolution passed by majority of all the members of Rajya Sabha and also agreed upon by the Lok Sabha. Well, Rajya Sabha has the upper hand in this particular thing. Why? Because if you're talking about vice president, he is the ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha. That means he is basically the speaker of the Rajya Sabha. Okay? So vice president can hold beyond 5 years until his successor assumes his charges. But there is a thing which is being said, that there is no mention what happens if vice president is not in the office or his office remains vacant. So there is no conditions written in our Indian Constitution. So yes, I've already talked about this particular thing. We have already talked about this thing. So let us talk about the powers and the functions of the vice president. Well, he acts as the ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha. That means his powers are similar to that of the speaker of Lok Sabha. So he is basically the speaker, but he is not added, means he is not addressed as a speaker, but he is addressed as the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. He is being addressed as the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. And when the president's office remains vacant, he assumes the role of the president. Okay, and when the president's office can be remain vacant, either by resignation, removal, death, or for any other reason. And he can act only for a period of 6 months. So if you're talking about offices of, it is being said that if offices of both the president and vice president fall vacant by reason of death, resignation and removal, etc., Chief Justice of India, or in his absence, the senior-most judge of Supreme Court, can act as a president. Yes, we are talking about Chief Justice of India acting as the President of India, but there is no mention what will happen to the office of the Vice President. We are having a big question mark. So this has never occurred, and this has also not been addressed by our constitution. Okay. So this is all about our Vice President of our nation. So after this, we can go to the next topic, if we are talking about the President of India. Okay, so if you're talking before going to the Prime Minister, so I would just like to say few things. That means if you're talking about being the Vice President, yes, he is, I'm just repeating few points. He is the ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha. And if we are talking about, he has the capacity to hold the means we are talking about the position of the President of India, if President of India is not there. So if you're talking in this particular, well, if you're talking about this particular, I'm sorry for the interruption cost. So I'm just taking that what is going to happen when our president is when our president basically falls vacant. So what happens is, it is actually a casual vacancy which is being created. Okay, so who have been the vice president, who became the president in acting position? Well, what happened is if you're talking about acting of the vice president, so it was when Zakir Hussain and Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed died in office, then what happened is, then the respective vice presidents, if you talk about VV Giri, who was the vice president of India at the time when Mr. Zakir Hussain was there in the president. Actually, Zakir Hussain is the first of the president who died in office. So he was a vice president. Then he became the president of our nation, and he just continued for only 2 years. Okay, so after his if we talk about after his death, so it was VV Giri who also became our next president. So he actually acted as the acting president at that point of time. And Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed also died in office, and B.D. Jatti at that point of time, he became the vice president. He became the acting president. Okay. So, well, this is all about our vice president. So let's talk about the prime minister and the union councils of ministers. Well, at this moment, Prime Minister is Narendra Modi, everybody knows it. And Prime Minister, if we talk about, he is the head of the government. Well, President, I have already talked, he is the head of the state of the Republic of India. But Prime Minister is the head of the government. And under Article number 75, it is being said that the Prime Minister shall be appointed by the President. Yes, President appoints the Prime Minister of India. And well, what are the roles of the Prime Minister? The Prime Minister is the chairman of Niti Aayog. He is also the chairman of NDC, Interstate Council, National Water Resource Council, and also plays a very important role in shaping our foreign policy. And you can see in this particular perspective, yes, our Prime Minister Narendra Modi actually loves to travel around the world. But actually, in the hindsight, if we see that he is trying to improve our foreign policies and relations with the other nations. So it is actually being shown like that yes, our Prime Minister is doing such and such thing. And it is his duty to maintain our foreign policy as well as various, and he is acting as a bridge between India and the world in having a very good relationship. So what are the various things? Again, we are talking about the same thing. What are the oath, terms, and salary? So, well, if you're talking about the salary, I just forgot to mention one thing, that what is the salary of the vice president of our nation? We were talking about the vice president. So, what is the vice president's salary? Well, if you're talking about the salary of the vice president, he is not drawing a salary on the basis of being the vice president. He draws a salary on being the ex officio chairman of the nation, means of the Rajya Sabha. So on the capacity of being the chairman of Rajya Sabha, he draws a salary. But the moment he is discharging his duty as a president, he is taking the salary of the president for the time he is in the office of the president. Okay. So now let's talk about the prime minister's salary. It is not fixed. So well, the term of the prime minister is not fixed, and he holds his office on the pleasure of the president. Well, prime minister holds the office on the pleasure of the president. Now you must be wondering that normally the time period or the tenure is 5 years, right? Well, the tenure of the Lok Sabha is 5 years, not the tenure of the prime minister. Prime minister can be changed within a single Lok Sabha, or he can continue till 5 years or till the expiration of the Lok Sabha. And it is completely up to the president how much time he should be there. That is written in our constitution. But that does not mean the president can be removed at any point of time. Well, till the time prime minister can prove his majority in the Lok Sabha, he cannot be dismissed. But if there is a no confidence motion passed against the prime minister, then the prime minister can either be removed or the prime minister resigns himself. Okay. Well, if you talk about what is the basic salary, well, his basic salary is rupees 50,000 at present, and there are certain allowances which are determined by parliament from time to time. Okay, so these he gets all the allowances for becoming the member of the parliament, along with it, he gets sumptuous allowances, free accommodation, traveling allowances, medical facilities, etc. All these are being done on the behest of the parliament, being the member of the parliament. Okay, so if you're talking about the councils of minister, well, there are certain things about the being the council of ministers. So who are the councils of minister? Well, so if we're talking about, we talked about the union government. Okay, so union government, if we talk about, it is being divided into a president. It is divided into vice president. It is divided into a council of ministers headed by the prime minister. So these councils of ministers are nothing more than the ministers who will be guiding the parliament. Okay, sorry, prime minister. So article 74 and article 75, it deals with the provisions regarding the councils of ministers, and prime minister will be the head, and how the councils of ministers are being appointed. So the councils of ministers are being appointed on the recommendation of prime minister to the president, and president appoints them. Okay, and it is actually basically on the advice of the prime minister the councils of ministers are being appointed. Next, if we are talking about what should be the total number of ministers including the prime minister. Okay, so we have got a membership of 545 MPs, right? So 545 MPs, let us say in the majority, let us say we have around 350 or 341 members. Okay, so if 340 members are there in the ruling majority coalition or the majority party, everybody cannot be accommodated on becoming the ministers. So the councils of minister number should not exceed 15% of the total strength of the Lok Sabha. So let us say if it is 545, so you can do the maths that how many ministers can be there. So approximately, if you say 70 to 75 ministers can be there in the councils of minister. Okay, 70 to 75, that's quite a big number. Okay, well, there are certain things which we need to understand. So member of the either house of the parliament belonging to any political party who is disqualified from being the house under 10th schedule of our constitution shall also be disqualified to be appointed as a minister. That means if a member is being disqualified for anything, we will talk about 10th schedule, we will talk about disqualification of a member of parliament when we will be studying parliament in our next class, in the next lectures. So we will talk about this. So anybody who is being disqualified for being the member can also stands disqualified to be appointed as the minister. Okay, so just like the prime minister, the ministers of the councils of ministers also hold their office as per the pleasure of the president, and it means the ministers can be removed by the president at his will. And however, all these should be done on the advice of the prime minister of our country. So this is how the councils of ministers can all be removed from their office. So now let's talk about the composition of the councils of ministers. So if you're talking about the composition of the councils of ministers, the first and the foremost is the cabinet minister, and it is being followed by the minister of state, and then we have the deputy ministers. So let's talk about the cabinet ministers first. So they are the senior most members amongst the councils of ministers, and they head important ministries of the central. It is not important, it is actually important. Okay, so there is a spelling mistake. It is important ministries of the central government like defense, home, finance, etc. So all these important cabinets, important ministries. Even we are talking about the education, Ministry of Human Resource, Information and Broadcasting. All these are important portfolios, and these portfolios are being headed by the cabinet ministers. And if you're talking about the cabinet ministers, so the cabinet, if we are talking about, they have got special powers, and they are actually, if you're talking about the cabinet meeting, they are powerful portfolios are there. So they attend the cabinet meeting with the prime minister as well as with the president of our country. Okay, so if you're talking about the group of ministers, these are basically the group of ministers. So there are certain things. Okay, let us talk about another term. From cabinet, we have a term called kitchen cabinet. So kitchen cabinet is another special cabinet which is being comprised of only very selected people who are close to the prime minister. Okay, so kitchen cabinet is another subgroup between the cabinet. So kitchen cabinet is basically selected by the prime minister, and it is only his closest ministers who become from the cabinet can become the member of the kitchen cabinet. Okay, so now if you're talking about other things, that means if we're talking about the cabinet is basically the group of the elitists. Okay, so elite group, amongst them, they are the cabinet ministers. So if you're talking about the next stage, that is minister of state, these are actually basically, if we talk about, they are the second rank, and they can be given as independent charges. Like if we talk about railways, okay, railways are not a cabinet ministry. So rail, if you talk about energy, if you talk about power over here, energy and power, all these things are actually under the minister of states. They are independent in charge, and they may not be in a position of cabinet, but yes, they are second in command, like second in the hierarchy, and they are the second in rank, and they are given independent charges at times, or they are also being attached to certain cabinet ministers. Like if you're talking about, yes, there are minister of state who are there in the human resource, just like we know that our minister of state in the human resource, okay, so we have our home ministry, we have Kiran Rijiju. So these are the minister of states, they are second in command. Okay, so what are the difference over there? Minister of state do not attend the cabinet meetings all the time. He can attend the cabinet meeting only if that particular ministry is being considered, or that particular ministry is being discussed under the cabinet meeting. So that will be the time when these cabinet ministers can go. So yes, so if you talk about the deputy ministers, they are the junior most. They are not giving independent charges, and they always remain attached to the cabinet ministers or the minister of state, and they assist to discharge the political, administrator and the parliamentary duty in effective manner, and they do not attend any sort of cabinet meetings. Okay, so they do not attend any sort of cabinet meetings. Okay, so with this, if we are talking about, so we have already discussed about the difference between the council of ministers and the cabinet. Well, council of ministers, if we talk about, they are a group, full group, but cabinet is a very small group and powerful group. Okay, so if you're talking about the councils of minister, they are basically more than 60 to 70 in number, whereas cabinet ministry is around 15 to 20 in numbers. Okay, well, councils of ministers consist of all the three: cabinet, minister of state, as well as deputy, whereas cabinet is a single entity. Okay, it's a single entity. Okay, so so these are the things which we have already studied in this class. So in the next class, we will talk about, okay, just we have certain times, right? So we will talk about, no, we don't have much time. So from the next class onwards, we will talk about the powers and the functions of the prime minister. Okay, so we will stop over here, and your attendance link will be live just at the end of this class, and it will be active for 30 minutes approximately. Okay, so thank you everyone. So from the next week onwards, I hope you already got the notification that we will be having separate classes for all the sections. So we will talk about all these things in our with the further instruction. We will talk about it. Okay, so we will meet again very soon. So thank you everyone, and have a great day ahead. Thank you very much. The attendance link will be live soon.